Shamli is taking his sandals to throw at me. I'm not doing that, bro. Today we're gonna be showing you guys how we made our new single Snake Charmer, which got released on Dimitri Vegas and Like Mike's record label, Smash the House.
In case you missed the track, you can check the link in the description to all the platforms, or else you can check out YouTube channel here.
So without further ado, let's dive into it. Alright guys, so let's start from the break. We started the song with this flute loop we got from Splice. This is how it sounds. And I'm sure that you might have heard this loop in several different tracks. So for the processing, we didn't do much of like the crazy stuff in this one because just some subtractive EQ in different stages of our mixing was there, and some boost in 8 kHz in our SSL channel strip, and and that's pretty much of it. For the breaks baseline, we having these two layers. The first one goes like this. It's a Reese bass. We actually it was from Serum, but the fact that we don't have like the greatest of CPU, we always resample our stuff. And for the processing, there is not much going on. Just glue compressor, tightening it up, and just low cut, boosting up 43 hertz and 107 hertz, and some saturation. It's like the initial one, which when you open Saturn, this is how it looks like, and we just dropped it, and it was enough for us. So we just kept it like that, and some mid-side EQing. For the mids, we actually cutting the lows around 31 hertz, and for the sides, it's like 122 hertz, and this just the utility plugin making it mono, and that's the first layer. And for the second one, this is how it sounds. It was also made in Serum. This is how it looks like. And for the EQing, we just did some high cut so that the top layers like the flute and the hi-hats and everything will have more space in the mix. And that's it. The next element we have is this piano, which we actually made in Contact. This is how it sounds like. This one right here gives that dark vibe which we actually liked. These are the notes which playing there. If you want, I can actually improvise on that. Sam is taking his sandals to throw at me. I'm not doing that, bro. But still, for the processing, we having this low cut around 100 hertz and some filter automation throughout the different section of the song, and some gain automation, and that's it. All right, so next up we have top loops coming in the 16th bar of the break. This is how it sounds like. This is the first one, and top loop 2, some claps adding in. And for the processing of this layer, cutting everything below 1 kHz. It's 900 hertz, yes. And kickstart for side chaining, and some Pro Q, tiny bit of boost, about 2 kHz, and gain automation. That's it. And for this layer, cutting everything below 400 hertz, and some gain automation. And for the claps, just an EQ, cutting everything below 400 hertz. And that's it. And everything together, it sounds like this. Alright guys, so let's get into the FX section of the first break. I thought of explaining the effects altogether so that we wouldn't spend too much time on it. So this is the radioed version of the song, and it starts with this war horn in the very beginning. So this one has quite a bit of low end boost, so that it would have like great impact when the song starts. And we have this reverse vocals also. And next we have this sub drop, just a bit of EQing there, and sweep down with clap. Yeah, and this one is actually playing in the build up also, and sweep down, another one. And next up we have this vocal pad kind of thing to give the ambience in the break. So we added this a long reverb, so that it would have like a pad type of effect. And for the sidechain thing, we actually added kickstart. And next we have this bass fill, let's say. And it is actually made in Serum. We always use this reverb trick to place our elements in the mix, and we added this reverb, but the mix is like very less, so that we can actually place it like our like the way we want it. And for the saturation, we added decapitator. That's from some toys, and we really love this plugin. And SSL, some basic EQing, and utility for adjusting the automation, and that's it. All right, guys. So let's get into the first build up of the song. Let's start from the snares. We having like 2 layers. The first one sounds like this, and the second one goes like this. For the processing of the first layer, we having this filter automation towards end of the build-up, filtering out the highs, and some basic EQing, carving out the 2K and boosting about 7000 hertz, and SSL carving out the 8K hertz a bit and boosting the mids, and some low cut, cutting everything below 188 hertz. And for the second layer, we didn't do much, just the high cut above 5700 hertz and gain automation there. And in the group, we added this subtractive EQ. I think it is actually for controlling the muddiness just a bit. And we always use transient shaper to give some attack to the sound so that it would stand out a bit in the mix, and some limiting. And the next up we have this sub kick. This one we added later in the mix because the buildup was lacking the low end, so we thought of adding this sub kick. And there is nothing much going on here, just filtering the highs, and that was enough. So other than that, just gain automation, and that's it. Alright, guys, so let's get into the FX section of the buildup. We don't usually use like a lot of processing in the FX side, just EQing and gain automation, and we are almost done. That's a case most of the time, but there are exceptions. But FX can really make a great impact on your songs, and it can make your transition way better. So make sure you pick the right samples. And I'm not going through the individual channels because we have like a lot of important other important elements to explain. So I'll just go through the group and I'll just play it for you guys. This is how it sounds. And some EQing, you can see that some kickstart, EQing. Um, Most of the time, it's just EQ and gain automation. You can see that, and that's it. Next, we have this top loops. It's just a continuation from the break. The only new element which is adding on is this guy. It's an ARP loop that is actually pitching up. It is made in Serum. We sampled it and just cutting out the low end and having some reverb. And yeah, that's it. And what else we have? We have, yeah, so the flute loop is actually being filtered. I mean, like cutting out the highs. This is the automation. Then getting back to the full S in the drop. We can see the automation here. And the sub that Reese bass and the break is actually being continued to the build up, but only till the first 16th bar, and from there this guy right here, the sub kick, actually takes it over, this one. And for the fills we actually use this pad which I explained earlier, just continuing through the build up, and the same bass fill. And the piano is actually playing different notes here. That's it. And and that's it. Yeah. So let's get into the drop, which is the very important part of the song. Let's start from this pre-drop vocals. This was actually from Splice, and to make the transition really smooth, we added this filter automation. You can see that, and some basic EQing, just boosting out the 100 hertz and everything above 1k hertz, and some SSL EQing. And let's get into the kick. Alright, so for the kick we have two layers. First one is this. This one we added later in the mix, because I remember that, like we were working on the um, second breakbeat part, yeah. And the breakbeat loop which had like very really crazy kick drum, and I thought of adding it to the drop, and it was perfectly working, so we thought of keeping it like that. And that's how this layer happened. And for the processing, just a bit of EQing, boosting up about 89 hertz, and some carving around 8k hertz, and that's it for the first layer. And for the second one, this is like the main kick, and we always use this channel strip for our EQ, kick EQ. This is how it looks like, and Roku doing nothing. Wow. And in the group we added this transient shaper to give the kick more attack, and some low cut some bell EQ cutting out around 80 hertz. I think this was for giving the bass some space. You have to do that so that the bass would stand out a bit more. I'm sure that was it for. And we have this limiter uh, controlling everything, and span for visualization. We always use this, and some more curving around 335 hertz. So it is really important to um play around with limiting. You gotta try that with your kicks and everything, because um, limiter can actually bring out the kicks in the mix, and without any, like very, what do you call it, like too much boost in the gain. So play around with the limiter and you will get good results. So yeah, and that's it for the kick. So next up we have the bass line of the drop, which is like the very important part of the song. um, this is the first layer. You might be thinking like, why there is audio. I Like we already told you, like we always work with resamples, and if you I mean, like if I have to explain all the individual layers and the processing, we have to go through the 7 project files which we did for this song. So if you want that, we can actually do that. So comment below and let us know what you guys think about it. If you want that, just comment below and maybe we'll do that. So this is the first layer. This is actually made from Serum and using some of synth shots. Uh, and we didn't do much of processing here, just EQing, cutting out everything in the different stages of mixing. And for the next one, we added this saturated layer, so that it would have some upper harmonics slash distortion, let's say. um, and it was like really good in that stage. We didn't do much of processing here, cutting out the highs a bit and controlling more highs using Ableton's EQ. And um, at one point, this was done. I mean, like the bass line was done with these 2 layers, and we finished song and we sent to some of our friends, and we got some feedback from them, like the bass line was still missing something. So we just came back to the project and um got to know that they were actually right, because it was missing something in the 100 hertz 100 hertz 100 hertz type of, in the 100 hertz frequency. So we added another layer to fill up the space, and this is how it looks like. This is the preset from Serum. This is how it sounds like. And from there, we talked about this earlier, we can actually place uh, your sounds using reverb in the mix, in the stereo spectrum. So we did some reverb technique, just placing it not too upfront but still quite in the back. And decapitator for saturation, um, echo boy, and our SSL channel strip, and kickstart for sidechaining. And there is like too much 100 hertz, like 80 to 100 hertz in at one point, so we had to reduce it. And then some more cuts, and finally cut at everything above 300 hertz. And all these EQ, they come in different stages of mixing. So one at one point you would be happy with this EQ, and then you come back to this project and you might be thinking like, oh, I don't need any more of these. And then and we got to finish it with cutting out everything about 300 hertz. So every EQ, it happens in different stages of the mixing. So yeah, that's there. And next up we have these 3 synth uh, shot, maybe you can call that, or maybe percussion, let's say perk shot. That would be great, right? So instead of these are same layers, but I duplicate like twice, and um, uh, just did some panning so that it would have some more depth to the sound. So and it really worked. So the EQs are same. And what else we have? we have this bass stab. It supports uh, first notes of the song, but we actually did some stereo panning, and placed it like far behind uh, in the spectrum, and it really worked. And that's it for the bass line. And for the I'm sorry, I had to explain the group effects. So in the group we actually had tiny bit of EQing, and we always work with this amazing exciter um, preset we always use. It's like a mid-side processing. So in the mids we are controlling, boosting up something like this, um, analog tape tube in the high end, and for the sides, just bit of mids and sides. It really works. So experiment with this, and you can actually get some great result for your baseline. Um, and imager, just boosting the mids, um, and some limiting, and that's it for the baseline. Next up, let's get into the first note in the drop. Um, this is how it sounds altogether, and we didn't do much of a processing here. It is already processed. Um, just reverbs and EQing, um, giving space for each other, uh, so that it would sound like one sound. And when we have this, next up we have this drop loop. I'm sorry, drop flute loop. Um, I've explained about this earlier, so I don't think like we have to explain it again. So next up we have this percussions happening in the B part. So we plan the drop like A B arrangement. So in the A part, the flute loops and everything, that bass tabs and everything will come up. And next we have this percussion going on. At that time, the bass is actually playing the simple, uh, like the sub notes only, like this one. And again the A part will come. uh, then in the last 16th bar we actually added another two layer, so we are actually call it like the C part. So that's the idea of the drop. So let's get into the percussion happening in the B part of the song. The first layer is this guy right here. It is a synth shot. Then we actually layered it like the way we want, like tuck, 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 tuck. That's how I achieved that. But it's like, uh, yeah, all together, the percussion really makes a great impact on the song. But if we are actually taking the individual sounds, it might sound shitty. Let's say. Uh, so this is second layer. Um, some EQing, cutting out the highs, kickstart, some more EQing, and this is the third one. This one gives a body to the sound, uh, but it was like having too much low end, so we actually chopped it out, uh, and kickstart obviously. Next, this layer also we added later in the mix, because after getting the feedbacks from our friends, they actually talked about the percussion also, it should stand out a bit more, so we added another layer. And I use this crazy. It's not. It's a very simple trick. You can also try it. Whenever you want to pitch your percussion sounds, you can actually grab a frequency shifter and try to match it with the frequency and pitch of the other sounds. Um, it really works for us. So try it out and let us know what you guys think about it. And that's it for the percussion. Altogether, the sounds. And what else happening in the drop? Yeah, that's it. So next up we have these clap coming in the drop. These are like three layers. The first one is this one. Some basic EQing along with our SSL EQ, and the second layer only has this SSL EQ. This gives a really tightness of the clap, which we really liked. This one gives a higher frequency for the sound. Some EQing, cutting out the mids because we didn't want any mids from this layer, and boosting up some highs and the sides, and some saturation. And that's it for the clap. And then we have this lots of vocal um, shots coming in, like this one. And it's not like too audible here, but and the other vocals.
I see it. We on the south side.
So it's actually, we always use this filter automation to give that smooth transition. Um Glue compressor for um, tightening up the vocals, and some like very drastic EQ. You can see that. Um, and yeah, some more EQs, and yeah, and that's it. So the other elements which is happening in the drop is um, this brass shot. We actually we used this one in the last new project, so we always keep our stems out of the finished projects so that it is really easy for us to go and get the sound, and it makes the whole process of the production faster. So you can also try that. And what else we have? Yeah, we have this sirens coming in the second part of the drop, along with the stop loops. And we have already talked about the effects, right? So there's nothing much happening. And that's it for the drop. The second break starts with this reverb plug along with this war horn. We have explained it already to give the ambience and impact for the break. And then this guy right here comes in. It's a vocal chop. We did some filter automation for the processing, just the SSL channel strip. And then we have this another vocal chop. Yeah, it's filtered out. It's coming later in the song. And one other thing coming in is this guy right here. These quotes actually from Serum. This the sound, and we wanted to have that a dark vibe for the song, and in the even in the breaks. So we added this thing, and it was really keeping that ambience properly. So that's for the piano, and another layer. And we have this vocals coming in. Along with this flute loop. This was actually from Kashmir's pack. We did some tweakings, just arranged the notes by adjusting the transpose. For the processing, we did some compression along with the reverb and normal SL EQ and controlling the gain with the utility. And this next element, this guy. So all these elements, it brings that really dark ambience, which we really liked. So we added a lot of vocal layer to give that ambience. So altogether, this is how it sounds. And this vocals comes in. And the breakbeat, yeah, this is the very important part. So it's like it is having like 5 layers. I'll just go through all of them individually. First one, and another one. So just random EQing, cutting out the unwanted frequencies from one channel so that it would have space for the other. We can see that utility automation thing, some SSL channel strip, and for the high frequency we added this layer. And you can see that we chopped out the highs, chopped out the lows and boosted some highs in the EQ. And altogether, this is how it sounds. And in the song, this is how it sounds. And we have explained everything about the vocals, right? Yeah. And the key is coming in. Yes, I'm sorry. And I forgot to tell you about the bass. It's the same Reese bass. There is no difference. These 2 layers. And In the build-up, the drop loops coming back. And yeah, that's it for the second break. In the second build-up, the only add-ons were these 3 layers. And next up, we have this vocal coming in. It follows the second break and then coming to the second build-up also. And yeah, there is not much happening other than the first build-up. So and that's it for the second build. And for the drop also, it follows the same as the first drop. And yeah, that's it. Alright guys, thank you for tuning in. We hope that you guys learned something out of it. I'm sure that there's a lot of mistakes in the video, but we're going to be improving that gradually.
Yeah, also before signing off, we really wanted to thank everyone who streamed it, everyone who supported, and everyone who gave us honest feedbacks.
Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We have all the music which we released here, and we're going to be having more tutorials for you guys.
Also follow us on Instagram and Facebook.
So see you guys soon. Bye.
Oh shit, we on the south side.